Hey, good evening. Welcome. This is Let's Just Talk with Kim. Of course, I am Kim, and I have a lovely guest, one of my very good friends and mentors, Reverend Sharon D. White. And I just bless the Lord for her coming out tonight to be with us because we had some of the discussion about grief and trauma last week. We kind of dabbed into it unexpectedly.
Mm.
So this actually came right on time. So I'm
Ooh.
just so highly blessed to have you here. So tell the people who you are and all the things about Reverend White.
I answer to all of those.
I know.
So, good evening to everyone who's listening, who's viewing, whatever which way you're here. I am Reverend Sharon White. I am ordained minister of the gospel, and I am professionally, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been doing this in this field for over 30 years probably. And in as my role right now, I'm the clinic director for a large behavioral health organization. My clinic is in Delaware County, which means that I oversee all operations for psychiatry, therapy, anything that falls under the category of mental health in our clinic. I oversee. There's some other programs, but I oversee the clinic. I love this work. I'm passionate about making sure that we understand mental health issues properly, that we don't stigmatize people, that even the general public has a better understanding about mental health issues, so that we can sensitively interact with people who have mental health issues. As I said, I'm a licensed, I am an ordained minister. I've been preaching the gospel for I don't even remember how many years, but it's been a minute. But I love this idea of merging ministry and mental health. As a matter of fact, on Saturday, I did a presentation on wellness. It was so awesome for a women's ministry. So this is my area of passion. And so I'm just glad to be with you tonight. I don't know what else you want me to say. I've got a bunch of certificates and all that other stuff. I'm not mentioning all that stuff because I don't think
Exactly, exactly,
it's not
exactly.
necessary.
So, I've been this, of course, being experiencing grief, experiencing trauma, and how those two intertwine to me. Just having a lot of family pass last year, it really hit and took a toll on me where I really had to take some time off just to regroup and get myself together. But I kind of feel like sometimes people don't know what to really say to someone who's grieving, or, that favorite, unfavorite saying, well, they're in a better place.
Ooh, that gives me chills. That makes me cringe. It makes me cringe when people say that. It drives me bananas.
Yeah, because that doesn't help my heart. Like I know me being a licensed minister as well, knowing being in church, I understand that part of it. However,
Yeah.
my pain of longing for my brother, for my nephew, for people that I have lost. And it's just so funny with my counselor. We kind of went through a list of how much loss I actually have gone through, and it's a lot.
Sure, sure.
So, when people say that, it's kind of for the person who's grieving, it's kind of it takes you a little back. You get
Yeah.
taken back by it. So I wanted just to
And they
talk
mean
about
well,
that.
by the way. Many
Oh,
people mean well,
absolutely.
but it's out of ignorance that they say that, and sometimes it's out of their own discomfort because they don't know
Hmm.
what to say, and they feel like they have to say something, and so the something is sometimes the wrong thing to say.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. So, with your expertise, like, how would you recommend for people when you want to be there for your friends and your family, and you don't want to necessarily say the right thing? I know for me, my thing is like just listen.
Hmm.
But what is your recommendations when people are going through?
Yeah, I think listening is obviously very powerful. Sometimes we underestimate the power of listening.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes it simply means asking that person, what can you do for them?
Hmm.
Saying to someone, I can imagine that this is a tough time for you. What can I do to help you? And let that person tell you what they want. And if they say, I don't know, then you can do things like this. You can say, well, I'm here for you.
Right.
Even if you don't want to talk, we don't have to talk. Now
Mm.
you have to be comfortable with silence yourself in order to offer somebody that. But sometimes the silence, the not talking, is as powerful as anything you can say. So you don't want to get into again saying things like they're in a better place. Oh, over time you'll get over it. All the things, like I have a whole list of things you should not say to someone who's grieving. I don't have it in front of me, but I do have a whole list of things you should not say to someone who's grieving. You
Right.
want to just be genuine, because if you know that person and they know you care about them, they already know you don't know what to say. They
Mm.
know that. They know that. And so your presence is more powerful than anything else. I'm a phone call away.
Mm.
Give me a call if you want to talk. Can we have a cup of coffee? No pressure. These are all things you can offer. How about we get together for breakfast? Let's whatever. Offer your presence, and don't worry about saying the words. Let them tell you what they need from you. What is there
Right.
anything I can do to ease your pain right now? Is there anything I can do to help you through this time? Those are all things that you say to people
Mm-hmm.
that they would
Mm-hmm.
appreciate, because when you say things like they're in a better place, it almost has a judgment attached to it that we don't realize.
Mm. Speak more on that.
Yeah, because the judgment is they needed to be in a better place. The judgment is that you shouldn't have such strong feelings, because after all, you know that they're in heaven or wherever. There's an unconscious judgment in that statement.
Mm.
And it's unconscious, obviously, because we don't mean to say those
Right.
things.
Right.
But
Right.
again,
Right.
I think just saying to them, "Is there anything I can do right now to be a support to you?" is what you want to do.
Right. Yeah, because I think a lot of times, like when those things were, when people were passing, I couldn't really tell you what we needed or what I needed or anything like that. I really can't answer
Right.
those questions because the pain is so heavy, and I had two different scenarios. One where it was quick with my brother. His cancer came back, and then in 30 days he was gone. Then it was one that was horrifying of my nephew being murdered and them being so close together that my heart could not handle it. So
Absolutely.
when people would say, "Do you need anything? Do you want anything?" I couldn't even really respond. I didn't know what to say. Like,
Yeah.
I want my brother.
Absolutely. And Kim, you bring up a good point. And this is where, again, it gets really sensitive, because the reality is, even like somebody else might know what they do want you to do. So
Mhm.
you still offer it. And then when someone's either struggling to tell you, or they say, I don't know, you take that and then you say, well, I want you to know I'm here.
Mm.
And would it be all right if I call for a room to be in their space even? Don't just
Mhm.
assume that because of your friend, you should show up at their house today. No, ask them, I'd like to be here for you. Would it be okay if I called you tomorrow?
Mm.
Would it be okay if I? So one of my new neighbors, she's actually a new neighbor. We're not even friends, but she called me to offer. She's from Ukraine, and she said, um, I'm making a Ukraine dish called such and such and such and such. Would you like some?" And I said, "You're from Ukraine?" And I said, "I didn't know that." I said, "Let me stop." I said, "I appreciate the discussion about the meal." I said, "But how are you?" Well, she broke. She started
Mm.
crying. So I said to her, "Are you home alone?" And she said yes. And I said, "Would it be okay for me to come and see you?" Because she's my next door neighbor. And she said yes. I asked for permission all along the way. And when I went to see her, she began to tell me that her parents, her mother, her father, and her sister were literally in the place where Russia was bombing them and all that. She was very
Mm.
fearful. So she was experiencing what I call anticipatory grief, because she really thought her father and her sister were not going to make it. And so I said to her, "I just want to be here for you. Is that all right?"
Mhm.
And she said, "Yes." Had she said no, I would have said, "Well, would it be okay if I check in with you tomorrow?" So we don't, because everybody's reaction is different. You don't want to assume that what you will offer one person, the other person wouldn't want.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
why you ask.
Right. Yeah, because I find like there was a few friends who would call me constantly and just say, "How you doing?
Mhm.
Do you need anything? Do you want to go anything?" Like, and especially like one of my best friends that we known each other since first grade.
Mhm.
Like, she would like if I needed to go somewhere, I knew because I couldn't do it on my own.
Sure.
So I would call her and be like, "What you doing?" And she was like, "Why? You need somewhere to go? You got somewhere you got to go?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." She was like, "Okay, I'll come and get you."
Mhm.
Because it was hard for me to go ahead and do it because I
Sure.
didn't feel like it, but I knew I needed to get this done. So she was always there. My girlfriend Malika, she was always there to
Mhm.
support and make sure that I had whatever I needed. And she would be that road dog. I have another road dog, Karen. You know Karen Autry.
Mhm.
She would be that person as well, just making sure I got out the house if I
Yes.
needed to, like not barricading myself in the house where then I'm just stuck in my thoughts.
That's that power of presence I talked about earlier. So making
Mhm.
yourself present before people. And again, I would sometimes just say, could we go get a cup of coffee at Starbucks? Or whatever I knew you liked. I might
Mhm.
say, how about we go to Sid Booker's and have dinner together? Can I go to the market for you? I love to cook. Can I cook some meals for you? You'd be surprised.
Right, right.
One of my friends, her husband was actively dying, and she definitely was going through anticipatory grief. So I said to some of our friends, we need to cook some food for her, so she doesn't have to worry about food when she comes home. And so we said, can
Yeah.
we cook for you? Can we make some meals for you? Those things help people because, as you
That's
said, sometimes you don't know what you need, but you don't. Sometimes you don't feel like dragging in the kitchen to figure out what you're going to eat. So most times you skip a meal or you get something that probably you normally wouldn't eat,
mhm. Mhm.
and that's still the power of presence and giving of oneself.
Yeah, yeah, because I know for myself that was a blessing,
Hmm.
just to have someone to provide that meal. So then it wasn't even to me, it wasn't even for me. It was more so Leah than my parents would have something to eat. Like they wouldn't have to worry about anything because there would be food here, and we were blessed by someone catering some food for us and dropping it off that lasted a very long time, which was a blessing because
Hmm.
nobody wanted to do anything.
Sure.
So yeah,
Sure.
just being supportive is the main thing. Like, what would your like? I know that sometimes with you said like knowing the person, asking them first. What happens though when because we have a lot of people who kind of close themselves into their grief
Hmm.
and you may call them and they won't want to do anything. But what would your recommendation be for someone that you feel is in that danger zone of closing up completely? Like, how do we reach them?
Hmm. So it's complicated because if they're closing themselves off, you have to listen for, is this person possibly depressed? Like what does that closing off mean? Because for some people, the closing off may just mean I really need a minute to myself.
Hmm.
Other people, the closing off might mean I'm going into a dark place and this is not good. So again, the checking in is really important. If there are several of you who are friends or related to the person, each one of you sort of taking the lead to check in. Sometimes it means stopping by their house because you want to see their environment. If they're staying in a place where they don't open the windows or the curtains or the blinds, it's dark and you look like they had the same clothes on. Now we're saying, hey, wait a minute. This is a different thing happening here. This is just not normal grief. This person is spiraling a little bit, and we may need to try to get them some help. So at that point, when you visit them and you see, hey, this person doesn't look they're in a good space. Sometimes you have to say that to that person gently, like, you know
Hmm.
what? I know this is really hard for you, but I'm concerned that it seems like maybe just maybe you're struggling a little bit more than what would be normal. And
Hmm.
so, and then see what they say. I mean, they may blow you off, but then they may give you an open. If they don't give you an open right away, I wouldn't push it. I would just come back the next time, right? Give them a little bit of space and then come back the next time. And then I think, again, those of you who know the person well will be able to gauge, she needed a minute, but a minute is now a week. Now,
Mm.
now it's 2 weeks. We got to do something different here. And then maybe it might mean several of you going together at this point to say, listen, we're really concerned. And so we all agree, since we know you, that you need to talk to somebody.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's a good point that you mentioned. Linda on Facebook, she said your neighbor is lucky to have you to check in on her. So I
Oh,
just wanted to share that
thank
because sometimes people, oh, they okay, but really taking, like you said, taking that initiative to make sure that that person is okay.
you.
To
Mhm.
make sure they're, and how you just said, like if they stop responding altogether, it may take a drive-by to make
Absolutely.
sure
Yep.
that we for the last thing anyone wants anyone to do is spiral into that dark place of depression, because so many things can come out of that.
Absolutely.
um
Absolutely.
yeah. So sometimes you hear about loved ones, older loved ones, or even those that have lived a long life with one another, and then their loved one passed, the person that was their best friend, their forever person, and then sometimes that person gets sick. Can you talk a little bit how hard grief can hit a person even physically?
Absolutely. And I think, yeah, so when people have sort of a really strong heart connection, that emotional, really strong emotional connection,
Hmm.
sometimes that person who is not initially the grieving person or not going through the issue can feel the pain of their loved one.
Mm.
That then causes them to take on some of the very same characteristics that their loved one is taking on. So that makes it complicated. And then also, like, I worked in gerontology for 20, I don't know, 30 years or something like that. And what I often saw with older adults was that if the one person passed away, the person who was living went through what we call survivor's guilt. And that their grief was different because it was complicated because they felt guilty that they were still alive and their loved one was not. And that's, we call that complicated grief. And that takes a different kind of work too, because you have to help them look at their faulty thinking and stuff like that. I'm not going to get too technical, but
Mhm.
I think the critical piece is when people have heart connections, really strong heart connections, it absolutely can affect the other party, and you have to pay attention to both of them at that point. And oftentimes that other person doesn't even realize that they've taken it on themselves. They have no idea.
Mm.
It's an unconscious thing because it's a heart connection.
Right, right. Wow. My niece had mentioned this. She was saying how since 2020, her and her husband, as Camille, has been through 13 deaths.
Ah.
And that's part of our family and a lot on his family, starting with his mother unexpectedly dying. That was in between my brother and my nephew dying. Like literally, it was April, May, and June.
Wow.
So, and then later in that year, my niece's god sister, which her family was like family to us, my sister's best friend since high school. So when we met Robin, we met Kim,
Mm-hmm.
and her daughter and her grandchild was killed walking home from school from a motor vehicle accident.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's just like when you're going through see a long season of important people which in your life that's passing away, and especially through COVID, like a lot of people experienced unexpected deaths. They experience people that just one after another in their circle of family, circle of friends. Like what do you do to get yourself through something like that, as well as be there? Because I think I like to always go back to both scenarios, because I feel like you need techniques and things to do as well as your family, so that we don't say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, and things of that nature. But when you have compounded grief, like how do you get through that? Like it's just so much.
Well, I think first it takes recognizing that it's compounded, which makes it more complex. Because here's the reality: most of us, when we lose someone or something, because grief is not just about a person, right? When we have losses, it takes us at least 6 months to, honestly, just to wrap our heads around it. That's a
Mm-hmm.
number that we use in the field, right? It takes at least 6 months. And I'm not saying that you're over the grief by then. I'm saying it takes 6 months for it to really settle into us. And then we begin to look at what's a new normal, right? So when you haven't had your 6 months for the first loss, and then the next one comes along, it starts it all over again. So you
Right.
literally are in a grief cycle 4 or 5 times, depending on how many people you've lost. And so it really takes uh recognizing that I'm not okay right now. I'm not okay. And then reaching out for support, either
Mm.
support groups or get some counseling, because the complication of all those griefs, usually people can't get out of that on their own.
Right.
Usually
Right.
they can't. So getting a therapist to really help you to take a look, because remember this too. Um, Even though there might be 5 losses, right? 5 different losses, the relationships were all different.
Mm-hmm.
So the grief about the relationships is going to be different too. It's all grief, but it's going to be different kinds of grief based on the different relationships. And when someone has had compounded losses like that, I really do say recognize when you're not okay and get some help. Again, support groups, therapy, and I, one of the things that people don't often realize is that most of our jobs, we have full-time jobs, many companies have an EAP service,
Mm-hmm.
employee assistance program, and they might be the very ones to help you find a therapist, because that's what they do. But I don't ever tell somebody who's experienced that many losses in a short period of time to try to do it on their own. You're going to need some help. Now, when you want to get the help is up, you have to think about that. But usually you can't deal with that on your own, that many losses in a short period
Yeah.
of time. Can't do it. So recognizing, taking a look and saying, I am not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like saying, I'm not okay. I'm not in a good place. And guess what? I need some help. And then reaching for it. If
Yeah.
your faith system has a counseling program, that may be fine, but I find many times that you really need a professional therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm very big on is counseling. I have counsel. I get counseling. When my nephew was murdered, the city of Philadelphia, they have a victims program where they provide you with counseling. So that was something like, even though people were saying, well, Kim, you got to take care of yourself, but I knew how hurt and debilitating it was for my I call them my kids, these are my nieces and my nephews and my cousins. I
Mm-hmm.
knew how debilitating it was, so I couldn't really fully, although I was having counseling, I still couldn't rest and be peace until I started the ball rolling to get through the red tape, so
Mm-hmm.
that I knew they everyone would be all right. Now, whether you took it and seeked help, that's on you. But I got through all the red tape that I
Mm-hmm.
know will push someone from not going all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
So that all you needed to do is receive a call or make a call.
Sure.
So that's what I,
Even that was a part of your grief process, Kim.
yes.
Even that was a part of you moving through the grieving process, because each one of us has these unconscious tasks that we find we have to do in that grief process. And so in order for you to move towards your own wellness, your subconscious said you got to do these things first, take care of these other people. That's a part of your process.
Mhm.
It's a
Mhm.
part of your process. And so listening to, again, what you need is so critical. And you can't let someone else tell you what you need. You can have
Right.
discussion with people around what they think, but ultimately you're going to have to figure out, am I okay? Where am I? Do I need someone else? Do I need a group? Do I need individuals? Do we need family? Does our family need a grief counselor? Like
Mhm.
where am I with this?
Yeah, because you can only do, I think, for counseling, regardless of what it is for. you will only seek out help when you're ready.
Absolutely, without
You're
question.
no matter what anyone else tells you, you're not going to do it. It's only going to
Absolutely.
be when you're ready. So even in grief, you have to be ready to seek out counseling. And really, I definitely I believe in it. Like I'm I will take all services. Like my job, we just merged with Jefferson. Jefferson has this additional program where now I have a social worker, I have a nurse, I have a counselor.
I say take it all.
Yeah, I'm into taking programs because they help me maneuver where it was just me maneuvering things. Like
Sure.
I can ask them questions,
Hmm.
even about my family, about what's the best step. And although they can't take any direct action for my family because I'm the employee, they
Hmm.
can still give me some ideas because that's part
Absolutely.
of helping me.
Absolutely.
So I mean, I'm like, I just anything that I can I'll take it. Like, I don't think anything is a waste of time
Yeah.
because it's all in the development of me. And I know everyone isn't there, everyone won't
Right.
do it, but I listen, I've been
It
through a
depends
lot
how
of
you're
traumas.
conditioned. It depends on how you're conditioned. It
Right.
depends on what you. So the many people have grown up in families and households and families where the mantra was, what happens in a house stays in a
Stays
house.
in the house.
And
Mm.
we break down and literally get sick because we hold on to that. But then
Hmm.
if you break out of that, even if that was your family value system, but you break out of it and say, you know what, I'm doing something different. It took you to do the work to break out of that
Right, right.
versus
Yeah.
versus stay hiding behind the closed doors and all that other kind of stuff.
Yeah, because it's so necessary to, in my eyes, it's
Mhm.
necessary. And
Mhm.
until you get exposed to how helpful it is because of our history, especially African Americans, we are very strong with that.
Mhm.
There's a stigma against counseling. There's a stigma like I'm not crazy. No
Right.
one's implying that you are.
Right.
It's just something is a good method to talk out your thoughts
Absolutely.
and get professional guidance. So that's one of my, and even sometimes medically, like I've had a lot, like I was caught in a fire, my first son passed. When we go back in my life personally, it's so much. There is no wonder after the house fire that it hit me in such a way that I then started having PTSD. I was having horror no night terrors and things of that nature because of so much that went on there, and that was the breaking point for me. And
Mhm.
now I'm on medication for that, and listen, I'm proud of my medication
I'm
and
proud
I'm
of you.
good with it.
I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of you because not only do family systems teach us to stigmatize counseling and all that, but so do faith systems. There are many churches and leaders and churches that don't support counseling unless it's from the pastor, and
Right.
it's a dangerous precedence because, quite frankly, and I'm going to be frank, many pastors are not equipped to handle some of the counseling needs of their parishioners. So being able to even bypass one's own faith system values to say, hey, you know what? I know God is good all the time, and all the time God is good, but so is a good counselor.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so is a good that count the way I look at it, God created all things. He
Absolutely.
gave that counselor, that physician the knowledge to
Yes.
do what they do. And if they feel that this is it,
Yes.
I'm willing to take it, And then I even identified from losing my first son. I used to have panic attacks and didn't really realize that I was having panic attacks if my son wasn't home at a certain hour.
Mm.
And in my job kind of compound that because of my role, I would get like the nurses report overnight and then see all the killing, the shootings, and all of those.
Oh,
So for me, let me hear something that sounds like a firecracker. I'm texting everybody, where y'all at?
yeah.
Everybody good? Check in. Then if you don't check in, then I'm calling you because
Yeah.
now. And it took me forever to realize that it was anxiety.
Yeah.
Like I would literally have anxiety attacks about my son.
Wow. That's understandable too. So that's not an irrational anxiety, but yet it still
Hmm.
needs to be treated, because there are some things that are irrational. That's not irrational because you had a reason, a valid reason for being concerned, but you still need a treatment, which is very powerful. So there's this realistic stuff that we go through, but we still have to get help, even though it's realistic and it's real. You still have to get help. So I think that's powerful, Kim, and I really applaud you for even being transparent enough on this call to say, I needed help. I took help, and yes, I take medication.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's such a bad stigma. Like, I remember I was at a conference and the woman was saying how hard she was struggling, but she's believing God for her healing. So she wasn't taking the medication. And I was proud of the person who was on the stage at the time that was saying, that said, wait, why you not taking your medication? That is God blessing you. The
Absolutely.
medication. Take why you going to take your body through all of that and not take the
Unnecessarily.
main. Yeah, it's not even
Yeah.
necessary.
And that's one of the things I praise God for, because many times I'm able, because I'm a preacher and because I am a woman of strong faith, and the people that I know who I intermingle with in different circles, they know that I'm not going to tell them something that's not biblical or not Christian, like,
Right.
that God wouldn't support. So many times I challenge people about that. I say, well, wait a minute. If you had cancer, would you take that medicine they want you to take? So let's look at the mental health issue. It's still a health issue.
Correct.
It's a health issue. And just like we don't stigmatize people who had a stroke and who have some atrophy because of their stroke, we should not stigmatize people who have depression or anxiety or who are grieving, all those kind of things. We have to understand that it is a health issue.
Right.
It's a health issue, just a mental health
Right.
versus physical health.
Exactly. And
And the
that's
truth
one
of the
thing
matter
I
is,
don't.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, 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 no. Go
Well,
ahead.
the truth of the matter is, even some of the things like anxiety and all that, they really can be physically prompted, because what happens is in the trauma and other kinds of mental health issues can affect the biochemistry of the brain. So it really is still a medical issue, because the medication oftentimes will set back the neurons and all that are out of, I don't want to use the real technical terms, but they will
Right.
set back the neurons and all of that are out of whack because of the trauma, because trauma absolutely can affect you biochemically. So it's
Right.
still medical.
Hmm.
Sorry, Kim.
And people don't make that connection, and I'm not really sure why. And like, I just literally gave the same example to someone who was saying how they didn't think they needed counseling, and I was like, yeah, but if you had anything else wrong with you, would you not go to the doctors?
That's good.
would Are you skipping your doctor's appointment? Are you not taking care of this? You're willing to get this type of medication for this, but you're not willing to go to talk to somebody about your mental, which is a health disability. Why
Absolutely.
not go and get that checked as well, just like every other health condition? So
I
that's.
recently talked to a mother of a child who was coming here for services, right? So
Hmm.
the child was probably 14 or 15, right? So she had seen our psychiatrist, and the doctor wanted to put her on medication, but the mother declined. So mom calls me about a month ago. Now the doctor wanted to put her on medication over a year ago. Mom didn't want to do that. Technically, the daughter was old enough to do it legally, because over 14, a child does not have to ask permission of their parents to take mental health treatment. Right? 14 over 14 is the law says that child can get treatment without their parents ever knowing if they don't want them to. Right? If the parent says no, the child can do it. But the child listened to her mother, so she didn't take the medication. And the mother started to see her daughter become worse. Her behaviors were bad, worse off. She wasn't concentrating. A lot of stuff was going on that could have been helped had she taken the medication. So I did not talk to her back then, but I talked to her this time when she called me. And I said, listen, I understand you're afraid. Tell me what you're afraid of. Well, I just think that medication is going to do, she's going to be like a zombie. And she gave you all the stuff she's heard about, what she saw on the news and all that stuff. And I said, listen, I understand those fears, right? I said, but what you're describing about your daughter's behavior, and you feel she's unsafe and things like that, I said, it's time for you to allow the doctor to try medication with your daughter. I said, first of all, they're very, very regimented about the medication they prescribe, because legally they're liable if something happens. I
Right.
said, but what you're describing, I said, your daughter can't continue like this without help. And so she said, she broke down and cried, and she said, okay, I hear you. And I said, here's the thing. You work closely with the doctor. If you start to see some side effects you're concerned about, you call my doctor back. But it's time for you. It's been over a year. She's not getting better without it.
Mm.
It's time to consider it. And she did. She did.
Good. That's good. That's
Yeah,
good. Sometimes it does take, unfortunately, to see the rougher side of things before people will really move and act when it comes to mental health.
absolutely.
Where like your health, you go to the doctors all the time. You take blood pressure medicine, you take cholesterol, whatever you need, you'll take that medication. But
Mhm.
you are but anything involving mental health is so very frowned upon that you won't want to take it.
Again,
So,
it goes back to what you said earlier, Kim, and what I said, and that is stigma. Stigma is very powerful.
hmm,
People are very demobilized by stigma, very demobilized
right.
by stigma. And again, many times the word usage is scary to people. That's why I tell people all the time, do not say someone's crazy. We don't use those words in this
Hmm.
field. We say people have a mental health issue or they're
Right.
mentally unwell. That's what we say. And then the other thing, of course, is when you look at the news and you see one tragic event from someone who had a mental health issue who acted out. I remember years ago with Sylvia Segrist, she shot up the Springfield Mall, and people hold that as a deterrent and a stigma to
Hmm.
mental health issues. So they say, well, they got to be crazy. So I would never go because they're going to say I'm crazy, and I might end up shooting up the mall too. When the statistics show that people with mental health issues are probably they're more likely to harm themselves than someone else. And
Right.
and so that, but all of that contributes to the stigma, Kim, and it keeps people from being honest to say I'm struggling.
Hmm. Hmm.
Keeps people
Hmm.
from being honest. Usually there has to be some catalyst that makes someone say, okay, it's time. Like 3 or 4 deaths, right? Otherwise, people will still struggle because of stigma until it gets to a place where it's unbearable, or someone they love takes them by the hand and says, you got to do this.
Hmm. Hmm.
I see you and you're unwell.
Yeah, when it comes to certain members of my family, I'll try to have that conversation with them. They're not quite ready, but I keep having a conversation because at some point they're going to be ready. At some point they're going to take that step because there's a lot to kind of come through. We've been through a lot as a family.
Mhm.
So, you just need to wait for that timing for them and not be overly pushy because you don't want to push them away, but you do want to keep them encouraged to say, what I mean, I'm that person, so I'll always say, well, when you're ready, just let me know. I'll help you. We could talk about it. We can get it set up for you. Like, you don't have to worry about it. And then on the other end, I have a family member who needs to get some help, isn't, and I won't let you drain me. Now,
Yeah, yeah,
there's a balance.
yeah, yeah. If people don't want help, so critical, several things that you just said. Critical number one, when someone says no, let them be. Try later.
Mm,
Try later. Because if you push them too hard, they're not going to ever want to hear it. So
right.
so you offer it, they say no, thank you. You come back another time, and you offer it again. And then if people don't want to get help, but they want to keep dumping on you. Then you have to say, you know what? For my own wellness, this is where I draw the boundary.
Hmm.
I love you. I love you. I know how you can get help, but I'm not it.
Right, right.
I'm not able to be it.
Right, yeah, because it's only so much I can take on for my
Mhm.
own well-being. So
Mhm.
I know where my balance is, and I'm trying to, like, I don't mind helping, but I'm not going down with the ship.
Yeah.
Like,
No, that's right. That's
so I,
that's
I
right.
I just have to have that balance. I have to have
Yes.
any that balance. Do you have any like key more than what you've already shared, of course, but any key identifiers for someone who might be on that sinking ship where, we're checking on them, but they're still not, we think something's wrong, but like when do you know it's like emergent?
So you're talking about identifying. If when they're spiraling worse, is that what you're talking
Yeah.
about? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think you have to look at their behaviors and see what's different than the norm.
Okay.
So you're looking at their behaviors, seeing what's different than the norm. You got to get your eyes on them. So you got to go see them, right? You need to see their environment also, and you want to and if you can, if you're close enough, you want to see, are they eating? Are
Mm.
they are they bathing? Because you're looking for signs of deep depression, which is usually lack of interest in normal things, lack of personal care, not following through on important things in their lives, self isolating, living in dark spaces, not doing their routines. They might even go to work every day, but what was their routine after that? Did they go? Did they used to go to their mothers every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday to sit with it, and now they're not doing that? Because some people can be functionally depressed.
Mm.
So you want to look for the changes that are maybe not everything is a change, because they know they have to function to go to work to get their check. But what else are they not doing that they usually do? And
Mm.
again, those are the things that you're paying attention to, and you're looking over time, a short period of time, hopefully, to make sure that they're safe. You're listening for word choices even with them. What kind of things are they talking about? Can you engage them in conversation, or are they pretty bland, dark, non-committal, those kind of things? I would tell you that most people who are grieving, even when they're depressed, most people are not going to try to kill themselves. Now, I'm saying most, that's the rule, but they can still get to a dark depression that's hard to get out of. So that's what you're
Right.
paying attention to. That's what you're
Right.
paying attention to.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You have very few instances, uh, percentages are there times of people who are grieving who will try to commit suicide. Very
Mm.
few. Um, I'm not gonna say it won't ever happen, but that's when you're paying attention. You got eyes on people. You'll be able to see. Do we need to call somebody?
Okay.
Do we need to take them out of the house and say we're going to the crisis unit at the hospital?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or do we need to call them? So in Delaware County, and I know in Philadelphia, we have mobile crisis teams that will come where the people are. Sometimes, as their loved one, you might need to call the mobile crisis team and say, "We need you to come out and evaluate my sister. Very concerned. She hasn't eaten in over 2 weeks. She's lost weight. Oh, that's the other thing, weight loss. Her
Mm-hmm.
hair, doesn't look like she combed her hair in a long time, right? All those pieces that normally say trouble.
Okay.
All those pieces that normally say trouble.
And that's a good thing to have too, the mobile crisis center, which a lot of people probably don't even know about, and it may even be in different cities or states as well. So that's something you can definitely look into in
Yeah.
your region, this to see. My niece
Let me
was
say,
saying,
let me say this. Every county has an office of behavioral health. I want everybody to hear me. Every county has an office of behavioral health, right? And in that organization, they are charged with the mental health and wellness of the constituents in their county, all right? And so if you ever need resources for a mobile crisis team or whatever, you can simply call your county office of behavioral health, and they will provide you with their resources. So I want to, you don't have to know it today, but if you ever need it, every county, not city, every county has an office of behavioral health that's funded by state dollars and all that. And they are the ones who are supposed to have services. Like in Delaware County, it's called the Office of Behavioral Health. In Philly, I forget what it's called, but every county has one. So you can always, you don't have to do a whole lot of digging. Just, you don't have to search on the internet too much. Just look for your Office of Behavioral Health, call them and ask them for the crisis information and the mobile crisis information for their team. And they'll come to you if they have one. Sorry for
"Oh,
putting that
okay,
out there.
okay, awesome, awesome." What I was going to say is my niece, she was saying, "What about kids? What's your recommendation when it comes to kids?
I'm not sure what she means, but what about kids? You mean what about kids for?
Kids dealing with grief."
Okay, so I think it's a little complicated with kids because it depends on the age group, right? But
Hmm.
but again, you're also going to be paying attention to some of the same kind of behaviors in kid form, though. Is this kid not able to function? Is this child, even if they go to school, are they not doing their homework? Are they having a hard time concentrating? Are they? Sometimes children will become argumentative when they're hurting because they don't know how to say I'm hurting. So you're
Hmm.
listening for how they behave. And again, kind of what I said about adults, you're looking for any different behavior. You know there was a catalyst, you know there was a death, you know. So you're looking for any differences in their behavior and what they say and do that's going to give you an insight. And I think with kids, you have to just, you can't force words on them, but what you can do, there's some really good kids books on grief, by the way, that have like pictures and all for helping kids to identify their feelings. I think that parents should definitely use tools like that. um,
Right.
Kids may not be ready to go see a counselor unless it's really, pushed on them, but I think you could get some tools to help your child be able to identify being sad, being angry, whatever that might be. um, and then when that happens, then you can go to places that specialize in children's services, like a child guidance or something like that. But with all of it, you're paying attention to behaviors. I don't care what the age group is. You're looking for differences. You're looking for intensity of emotions. You're looking for different behaviors. You're looking for changes in patterns. You're listening for despondency. You're listening for a sense of I've given up. I'm this hurts too much. You're listening for all those things. It doesn't matter what the age is.
Mm, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when my first son passed away, my stepdaughter was about 6 years old, I think, when that occurred.
Uh-huh.
And what we noticed with her is when she would be playing with her dolls.
Mm.
So she would act out the passing of her brother or
Wow.
the funeral and different things like that. And that's how we knew, like, let's see what we need to do something to help her cope with what she's going through. So like sometimes that is definitely the way kids act, like kind of display things that's
Mhm.
going on, is how they're playing and when they're playing with their toys. I know nowadays we got so many people, kids, into like the electronic stuff, but when they do play, sometimes you can identify some things that they may say or do that will show that.
Because the play is different. So again, it goes back to what I said though. The play is different now, right? So
Hmm.
we're looking for differences. The other thing I will say that's a challenge today for many parents is, these kids have cell phones and they have all these apps you don't know about. And so sometimes they're talking about their stuff to their peers on these apps and all that, and you don't hear it. So
Hmm.
that's why you got to have conversations, intentional conversations with them. If Uncle so and so just died, we need to talk about that. And you
Right.
don't want to, you want to sound professional, but you just want to say, hey, you know what? I know Uncle Jerome. Like my uncle was one of my favorite people when I was a kid. He died, and I remember just being heartbroken. Like, and nobody could really tap into me being heartbroken. But it's like, I know Uncle Jerome was your favorite uncle. Can you want to talk about that? Like, get them talking, and you'll start to hear,
Hmm.
just where they are with it. Have them talk about their relationship with that loved one. What does their absence mean for them? How you feel about Uncle Jimmy not being here anymore? Like, and again, it depends on the age. So I'm kind of giving some general stuff. When the kid
Hmm.
is 5 years old, you're not going to be able to do that. You're just looking at
Right.
more. So then you're looking for more behaviors. But
Hmm.
you're talking about 12, 13, 14 and up, you can ask some of those questions and see what you get from them. But again, we have to remember that kids are talking to their peers a lot more than we know about stuff like that. They're on
Right.
Snapchat talking about it and all these other places. So you still have to have a conversation yourself so you could try to tap into where they are. Because let's face it, their peers are not going to be the best ones to help them. But that's who they're
That's
talking
the
to.
truth.
Yeah, they're
That's
not
the
going to be
truth.
helpful. They're not going to be the most helpful. So yeah, and kids really like. I know, and it's funny because you said something that I want to tap into. Sometimes they'll say stuff um, in a way that if you don't pay attention, you'll miss a cue they gave you. So, for
Right.
example, one of my friends, her uncle died, and I'm trying to couch this so I don't give any information out. But so we were at the dinner table, and so they were passing around the food. We always pass the bowls and all that. So they passed her a bowl of this certain food. Now she always ate it, and so when they asked, she said, "I don't want that." How much said, "You don't want no grits and bacon?" She said, "I don't want that. I don't eat that." I said, "When you stop eating this?" And she said, "When so and so died."
Mm.
That's a cue that death has affected her greatly.
Right. Right.
It came out at the dinner table. Again, I keep summing it up when I say you pay attention to differences. Her language said, "I'm struggling with the death of my uncle." And then that becomes an opportunity to talk about it individually.
Yeah, yeah. And that's really key with kids because kids they don't know how to process things. They don't know really even the express, especially the younger kids. They don't know how to express themselves. So you really have to be in tune to what isn't said more than what is said, so
Mhm.
that you can really support and be there for your kids. And then if they're older, you have to sit down, like you said, and have those conversations. I know sometimes it's kind of a difficult conversation, but you have to have it because if you don't, you're going to miss something that's really going to grow.
Yeah,
And you don't want it to be a hindrance to your child. You really
yeah.
want them to be released from the grief or the pain that they're experiencing. Not that it'll go away,
You want
because
them to work through
definitely,
it. You want them to
huh?
work. You want them to
Work
work
through
through
it,
it. You
right?
want to work through it.
Yeah, yeah. Because I
Hmm.
tell anybody, it's not ever going to go away. There'll be some good days and there'll be some bad days. Because my son, he would be 32 now, I believe, my
Wow.
first son. So there's sometimes his birthday will come and go, and I don't realize it, or the anniversary of his death will come and go. I don't realize it. And then there's other days I can't function,
Yeah, yeah.
and I
But
and
it
I can't tell
resurfaces.
you why or when that'll happen.
Yeah, it resurfaces, and the important thing is just to get recognize it. Even if it's 5 days later, you say, "Oh, you know what? That was the anniversary. That's why I'm dealing
Mhm,
with
mhm,
this, right?"
mhm.
Yeah. So it resurfaces it absolutely. The anniversaries, holidays, special days, special events, all of those can bring it back up again. If you all took family vacations in July and you always went to the same place in July, probably in June you start to feel funny. You don't know why, and it's because July's coming.
Right, right. Yeah, because that I had that experience with Christmas.
Okay.
Because Christmas is always a big time with kids. So
Mm-hmm,
it was always difficult for me to go through Christmas. And
mm-hmm,
then once the marriage kind of fell apart, and then I lost my stepdaughter, where I felt like, that was my daughter. And
mm-hmm,
she was kind of ripped from me because of the marriage falling apart.
hmm.
Like Christmas wasn't Christmas no more. And it took
Yes.
me a very long time to figure out why I like everyone be, oh, Christmas music, this, that, and the other. And I'll be like, I mean,
And you're like, oh, Christmas music. Mm.
yeah. Like it was like, no, I'm not into all that. No, I don't want to
Yeah.
watch a Christmas movie. And then it would be like, people would even try to challenge you with your Christian faith. I'm like, yeah, I'm all into Christ's birth. It's
Yeah.
just all the hoopla around
I'm not
Christmas.
putting a
I was,
tree up. I'm not buying my.
yeah, yeah, all that other stuff I wasn't
Mhm.
into. And
Yeah.
then I realized why it was. Like it
Yeah.
was really, and then by the time I realized and then tried to do something, my now son, Tehran, he was like, now who gonna take all this crap down?
Sharon is like, you know what? I'm sorry. You waited too long. We trying to do this now. I'm sick of you.
I tried, hey, I tried to surprise him. He came home from college, and
Uh-huh.
I had the house all done up. And he would looked around. He was like, I mean, but who's taking this down? You gonna make me take it down,
He wasn't gonna celebrate with you on that because he wasn't used to it. Listen, I get it. I get it. He's like, she my
right?
mom for real on this one.
He was like, no, sir, I'm not doing it, mom. You took it down. I was like, I'll put it up, so you
Yeah.
take it down.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, Kim, I'm so glad you're having this conversation because grief is such a complex thing, and trauma associated with grief is complex as well, because the trauma usually comes out of the grief being so painful that
Right.
it affects people in a way that they have a hard time accommodating it. We use this word accommodating professionally, which means we can reconcile it at some point. I took this promotion for this to run this clinic in December of 2021. And I started, and this, I didn't know it at the time that it was coming together like this. But my first day was the day that my dog died. I put
Mm,
the dog down. So, you know, the anniversary is always bittersweet for me. And then I loved my dog a lot, and everybody knows it. They knew me, they know my dog. And so I went through this thing of, okay, do you want another dog? Because people say you're gonna get another dog, and I say, and I'm good about saying, y'all, I ain't ready for all that. You let people find out when they want to do it. But I started thinking to myself, like, I really miss him a lot. He nobody can ever replace Gemini. It's not possible. But Can I have another companionship with another dog and be able to accommodate him in my life or her in my life? And when I thought about it, the answer is no.
Mm.
Other friend, she lost her dog, she got another one. uh I'm not there. This is the complexity of grief. For me,
Right.
the answer is no. For her, the answer was yes. For my niece, the answer was I'll never eat grits and bacon again because Uncle so and so died. Like, it's all individualized.
Yes.
And the best we can do is be present with someone. I'm going back to what I said earlier because I know pretty soon we're running out of time. But the
Mm-hmm.
best we can offer people is to be present, to offer ourselves in however they way we can that they would like us to be, to check in with people, to not question them a lot, offer words of support. And the question, how can I be a help to you, is very powerful. How, and again, showing up every now and then to have a cup of coffee. You bring the coffee and the cake or whatever. That's more powerful than we realize. And then
Yeah.
sometimes it means asking that person when they're ready to tell you about their loved one. You know, tell me about your uncle. But I wouldn't do that right when they die. But eventually, I guess
Yeah.
as you're working through supporting them. And then again, the last thing I will say about that, because sometimes there's a sense of urgency to say to this person, I love you a lot. We've been friends 15 years. I know you're not in a good place. Please, let's, and I'll go with you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look for some counselors. You want a Christian counselor? Let's find one, right? Those are the things I think that are powerful in paying attention to behaviors. If this person never cries, that's a sign too, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
that maybe, just maybe, they are because part of the grief process is the tears, right? The crying
Mm-hmm.
and all that. And if they don't, maybe they're stuck and need to get some help about it.
Right, right. Well, thank you so much. The one thing I didn't get to bring into the conversation about grief is a multitude of things. It's not just people. It's things like you mentioned with your dog. Like it's so many different aspects, and you can't grade them or level them because your pain is just as
That's
heartfelt as my pain. It's just in a different way. People grieve they're losing their home, grieve they're
absolutely,
losing their jobs,
absolutely.
grieve so many different things,
Loss of
and it's
roles.
okay.
Divorce can cause grief because
Right.
so I was counseling this woman, and I'm not going to be long with this story. I was counseling this woman, and everybody in her life knew her husband was abusive. He was sexually abusive, physically abusive. They knew all of that, right? So everybody in her life expected her to celebrate when they got a divorce. They expected her to be
Mm,
happy and all these things. And I gave this woman permission to say, I'm not happy. Everybody else around expected her to be happy, right? You got rid of him now. He's not a burden anymore. You're not going through all that. And she was grieving greatly. And I'll tell you, part of her grief was what could never happen now, because people have ideas about what their marriage would look like, right?
mhm.
If you ever had a thought about being married, you had ideas about what that would look like. You had your thoughts about what it would all be. And when as a woman in her 80s who was divorced, she was grieving the fact that I'll never get what I always thought it should be.
Mm,
She used to go to lunch with her friends on Thursdays, and they would talk about their marriages, and she said I could never contribute. And she said, but now I really can't even do it because those things that they're talking about that they love, I haven't had that, and I never will now.
mm,
So that was a really complex kind of grief issue because she had to
right,
come to
right.
terms with all that she was not going to have.
Mm,
So
mm, mm,
grief is
mm.
powerful, and
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
it's grief. We grieve a lot of things: roles, responsibilities, marriages, all of that, and none of them are greater than the other because grief is in the eyes of the beholder.
Right. Definitely, definitely. Well, thank you so much for your knowledge,
Oh,
for your encouraging words, even as we process grief and how to handle it. And I just thank God for our connection because I know I can always call on you, and I
you got
have.
it. You got it.
Whenever I'm in need, I can always call on you. So I just bless God for you, for your ministry, for the powerful stand of your preaching. Everything about you, Reverend White, is so amazing that God has done such an incredible thing in your life. And I, for one, am at awe of what God has done in and through you and
Oh,
how he has impacted my life because of you. So I just thank God for you. You know I love you. You
you
know
got, girl,
I
you know I love you too. You one of the few people who can call me girl, and if I could drop what I'm doing, I will. If I could drop it, I will. You have open access to me, and you know that.
do.
So
Yes,
I so
yes.
appreciate you too, my sister. I really do. And thank you for having me today. I'll come back anytime I can. There's lots of areas that we can look at. And for me, I have a passion for this stuff. I really do.
Right. I
I have
know.
a passion for making sure we understand how to care for people. Because this is really like every topic we can talk about, it really centers around how to care for people.
Mhm. Mhm.
When
Mhm.
you talk about grief and how to care for people, how to care.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. So for those who may want to get connected with you, can you share like your Facebook if you're on Instagram or anything else?
boy, I am on Instagram. I don't know my literacy. I'm on Instagram, but I forgot my ad. Hold on, let me tell you real quick. So I'm on Facebook too, and I'm Sharon D. White on Facebook. My Instagram is come on. My Instagram is Miss Shay, capital M, small S, capital SHAY White. That's my Instagram name. All right.
Okay.
And then again, I'm on Facebook, Sharon D. White. And if you find my Facebook page, you'll see my description. I'm a clinic director at Marikey. And I have some other things coming down the pipe because I'm preparing to start my own business. So those things will become, yeah, I'm looking at, yeah, it's a long time coming. So I'm going to be doing that. So, I'll put some stuff out there because I'll have a website and all that kind of stuff down the road a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
us informed. Keep
I
us informed.
will. It's going to be around mental health and all this other kind of stuff in ministry. So yeah.
Awesome, awesome. I know you've always had that connection of integrating mental health into the Christian experience
Yes.
of knowledge, having knowledge of what we say and how we say things and how it is portrayed over the pulpit. So I just bless God for you stepping out on what God called you to do to have your own business in this area. So I look forward to seeing it. So
Yeah.
thank you all who have joined us live, as well as those that will do the replay. Don't forget, I'm here every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This Let's Just Talk with Kim, and we'll see you next week.
And I love it.
Bye.
Congratulations, Kim. I love it.
Love you.